Welcome back. This is Donald Potter, and we are looking today in this lesson at the lesson 41, Romance Roots, number 6. We have the Roman numeral there, 6. And we have two groups here. We have pull and puls. Both mean to drive or to push. And then we're going to do FAC and FACT, which means to make and to do. Let's dive in here. Number 1, we have P-E-L, pel. Again, it's going to mean have the Latin root here. The Romance root here is to drive or to push. So let's see how this works out in some words. We have impel. You can see the chameleon prefix right there. That is actually in, and the in changes to an M when followed by a sound where both lips come together. Now that's called bi. That's two. Bilabial. Labial's lips. So bilabial, your lips come together. And so we have a chameleon prefix there. It's an example of what I like to call a euphonic change, and a linguist calls simulation, pressing on. So now, so this impel means to pull in. So like if you turn a fan around and have it going backwards, instead of pushing the air out, it pulls the air in. So it's going to impel. And of course, on a jet engine, you will have a fan that's pulling the air in, and that's an impeller. So here we have the agent, the idea of if you impel something that impels something is called an impeller. So that's impeller. Then we have compel. Again, we got that chameleon prefix in front of the P. It's going to happen a lot here. When you compel somebody, like you ask him, I said, I want you to go to town with me. And you compel them to go. You like maybe force them or make them go. Compel. It's something, now we add ing, turn this into or take this verb here. We have compelling. If something's compelling, it will push you towards it. So you're compelled to do it. Sometimes it has the idea of against your will, something compelling. I suppose we could have the word impeller, something that impels, but I right now don't remember ever seeing that. Next we have, by the way, that's a cool thing about learning these prefixes, suffixes, and roots. You actually can just make up your own words sometimes if you want to. And that's exactly how words get created. Other people do it. Why can't you and me? Anyway, we have propel, and you know pro, this prefix here means before, so propel is to push something forward. So like the wind, you're in an airplane and the propeller propels it forward, pushes it forward. The opposite of propel then would be dispel. I hope that by teaching these prefixes, roots, and suffixes, I will dispel any fear that you might have had reading big words in English, multisyllabic, or what I like to call polysyllables. Next we have repel, and if you ever seen anybody go down a sheer cliff, and they're holding on to a rope, and their feet are hitting the cliff, and they're repelling, so they're trying to come down. Excuse me. That's the idea of to repel. Re means again, and pel means to drive or push. So you can kind of visualize that. Next, we have a repellent. Excuse me. A repellent is something like you can put, let's say you're around an area where there's mosquitoes, so you spray on a repellent, and that will push them away. The act of repelling is the verb form. He was repelling down the cliff. Or if you put on repellent, you're repelling the insects. You're keeping them away from you. Now, this is where the word propeller. You remember I talked about an impeller is something that pulls the air or pulls something in. It impels. It's someone who impels or something that impels. It's an agent. Here we have a propeller. So that's the opposite of an impeller. The impeller's pulling in, the propeller's doing the other. So on an airplane, if you can envision this, the propeller is pushing the airplane or pulling the airplane forward, actually, but pushing the airplane. You got to have a pusher to drive. Now, in a rocket, you have a propellant, and that propellant is what's going to push it off the launch pad. Number 2, P-U-L-S. This is the second form here we have for to drive or to push. So first we have an impulse. And that's to drive, that's kind of to push something. An impulse is like the thrust that comes out of a rocket, called the impulse. Now, you can also apply this to a person. A person is somebody, and again, we notice the chameleon prefix there. The M is the N, but here the P turns it, causes it to shift there. And somebody that's impulsive, they don't think, they just talk. They need to slow down a little bit. Some students are said to be impulsive. And one of the things we teach in school is for people to control their emotions so they can live in society with other people. Next, we have a compulsion. And so you have with, the preposition with, and then drive, and then we have S-I-O-N, compulsions. We've got a noun there. He has a compulsion to do something. Next we have, if somebody has a compulsion, they're said to be compulsive. Next we have expulsion. X means what? Out. Or away or out, X. So we have expulsion. In school one time, I remember one of the students misbehaved, and he was expelled from that school. He went to another school, but he wasn't allowed to stay there, so that's like an expulsion. Then we have propulsion. And so when you have a propellant here that's going to propel things ahead, that is said to be propulsion, but it's the S-P-U-L-S here. Repulsive. Oh my goodness! If someone doesn't take a bath and they don't smell good, you can't stand to be around them. They're said to be repulsive, but there's a number of things that can make people repulsive. Repulse. That's the verb form, and then that makes someone repulsive. And so before I go to tutoring every day, I always make sure I take a shower. Okay, next B, now we're going to shift. We're going to do FAC and FACT, and this means to make or to do. And so you have a faculty. Here you've got the people that work on a school is the faculty. Then we have facile. Or facile, the idea here is something is easy to do. Then we have facility, and facility is, I actually paused a second there to look a little closer to get an exact definition here. I was on facile, I was correct on that. That means something that's easy. Facility is a noun, and it's a place, amenity, and I'm reading the definition here, or piece of equipment provided for a particular purpose. And for example, cooking facilities, manufacturing facilities, facilities for picnicking, camping, hiking, and so on. you get the idea. Public facilities could be like a public restroom. And the second definition is, this is what I was thinking, an ability to do or learn something well, a natural aptitude. He has a facility for languages. And our last word here, facilitate. Facilitate is... it means to make, that is, an action or process easy or easier. In other words, I'm trying to make reading easier for you, and so I'm trying to facilitate your reading. And this is actually from a French word, also Italian, that means easy, and it comes from the Latin word facilis, that simply means easy. Okay, and so then the next one we have is the number 2 is fact, and of course I hope you know what a fact is. If it's not a fact, it's fiction. Then we have manufacture, and this manu has the idea with doing something with your hands. Manual, like manual labor. That's something you do with your hands instead of a machine. So manufacture used to be something that was made by hand. Nowadays it's just something made by man. And then we have a factory, and a factory is where that you manufacture things. Next we have satisfaction, and looking at satisfaction a little bit closer. The noun is fulfillment of one's wishes, expectations, or needs, or the pleasure derived from this. It's a very good definition. He smiled with satisfaction. I like to use this way. Mr. Potter gets a lot of satisfaction seeing his students improve their reading performance. And by the way, that comes from Middle English, which comes from French, and then it came, or from Latin, and it means to satisfy or to be content. And so it's the idea of make, satisfactory, or content, and then we have the tion, and that's how we know from the very form that it's a noun. Next we have an artifact, and arta here has the idea with things that are old. And so, wait a minute, that's not old, there we go. Old, things that are old, and so it's an artifact. Let's see. Looking a little closer at artifact. It is, interesting. I actually had that wrong, looking up in the dictionary. Arta has simply to do with by or using art. And then we have the artifact, the idea of to make. It is, by the way, the British spell this with an E, if you see that anywhere. It is defined as an object made by a human being, typically an item of cultural or historic interest. Gold and silver artifacts. Okay, so in my mind, this is when you're digging up old coins and things from the past, and that's why I just off the top of my head, I said that means old. It does not mean old. It means just exactly what it says. Art. So it's something that people have made a long time ago. All right, now I know, here we go. We got Benny on the front, which means what? Good, right? And OR is an agent. So benefactor is somebody who does good things for people. A lot of times somebody's doing a project and a benefactor comes along and gives them some money. I have had, one time I was tutoring a little girl, and the parents didn't have money for the tutoring. And a lady handed me, whose boy I had taught to read, just handed me a check for $100 to tutor this child, which I did. And so that lady was a benefactor. Next one we have malefactor. And again, M-A-L is bad, O-R is an agent, and fact is to make. And so a malefactor is somebody who makes or somebody who does something wrong. Next one we have factual. Factual is an adjective, is concerned with what is actually the case rather than interpretations or reactions. It actually occurred. So men have walked on the moon. That is a fact. The moon is made of green cheese is not a fact. Next we have satisfaction. Satisfaction, excuse me, there we know, of course, right off the bat it's going to be a noun because of our suffix. And it's the satisfaction is defined as the fulfillment of one's desires, wishes, expectations, or needs, or the pleasure derived from that. And so satisfaction, and it comes from the Latin, it means to satisfy or to be content. And so satisfaction, you got whatever makes you satisfied, happy. All right, that's the end of this lesson. A little bit longer, but fortunately I actually divided up another lesson, or I had a C down here, but now I got a B because this was a longer lesson.